Tesla's at a very nice bounce after finding that double bottom of formations, going from 384 all the way to 430 in a week of price action. So should we expect the retest of that 466? Better yet, that 474 going ahead, getting close to that all-time high level of 488. Are we going to see sellers try to step in here and bring stock down? Well, quickly on the weekly, guys, we see a very bullish price action picture in the long term, right? We've seen this constant approach to the upside with smaller pullbacks and sharper corrections, right? Before that, we hit those all-time highs of 488, being that very sharp move up and sharp correction down, kind of this V pattern, right? No real backing, very quick and very quick. So just kind of a lot of volatility here, guys, not a lot of backing. But then we see price kind of build up, find a chop range, right? It cannot be chopping forever. Then we see a very nice green wide bar shifting that momentum, going from this constant chopping range, getting tight, tight, tight to boom, right? Buyers step in with that dominant change in price action. And then we go ahead and continue to the upside, tapping around that 466 and finding some chop. So we're not really pulling back here, guys. We saw a little bit of a pullback, but this doesn't hold that much weight as the overall market was pulling back for the last around 3 weeks until last week, finding that very nice, beautiful bounce up, with the overall market really correcting very nicely. So we see really standout green candle given that overall price action bounce, and this is looking really primed to go ahead and retest these highs here, guys, as we've had a few drawn on weeks to the downside, and we're correcting most of that move in one given week and stemming off a nicer and controlled move to the upside instead of a very volatile move to the upside, kind of primed up for a big volatile sell-off. So we're seeing some different price action compared to the last rally, and you gotta be liking what you're seeing here in a long-term perspective. Now taking you guys over to the daily, we see an obvious double bottom formation. That's the main thing that sticks out to me, right? We've had this sharp sell-off from that 474 all the way down to 384. So that's a big move, guys. We're not talking about any small move. It's over around 3 weeks, and we see about 18% to the downside. And from there, guys, we get a bounce off of that 384, going ahead, trying to reach up and claim that 412. Can't really claim that, right? We kind of mess around for a bit, see a good amount of selling pressure, then boom, right back down to that exact zone. That's where we get that double bottom. Bottom once, bottom twice, led to a very solid rally to that 430 level. So we're seeing a very reactive stock at that zone, and we're back in the price action of 412 and 470. That's a rough zone, guys, right? Kind of bouncing around that zone, battling for that control. We're chopping, right? We're not seeing a given uptrend or a given downtrend. We're kind of battling for that control between those two zones of 412 and roughly 470, with the high being 474. Now we're back in that range, so you got to be happy with the short-term outlook, guys, especially with the overall market kind of pulling up with Tesla, right? If we quickly look on SPY, the overall market, beautiful correction, guys. I mean, this is great. We've seen around 3.5 weeks of a continuous move to the downside, about a month now of price action, right? And then we see in 1 week correcting pretty much that entire move, guys, getting right back to the zone of right around that 689, hovering at that 683, really in a good position to go ahead and retest all-time highs, possibly even in the next week of trading. So we've seen a huge 180 in price, right, with that pullback and all the crazy fundamentals going on with the market to boom, we go ahead and completely recover. So that's going to be huge for stocks like Tesla, guys. That's going to put us in a great position to go ahead and correct from the sharp move to the downside. If we go ahead and look on the hourly on Tesla, we were kind of built up in this resistance and this shorter term support. We were squeezing perfectly, right? We tried to find that setup. We actually did gap up and have a very nice continuation to around that 427 level. From there, we kind of gave way. So the setup did work, but also a lot of, back and forth with the market kind of made Tesla fall to the downside. But right where we found that 384, get that double bottom, and then nice price action for the rest of the week, going up to that 430. Very consistent approach, right? We had a little bit of battle after bouncing there, bit of back and forth, and then boom, beautiful price action. Finally claim over that 412, getting in that rough zone that we were battling for control, and then just having a very clean ascending profile with the buyers in that dominant control. Not a lot of answer from the sellers. So seeing really good stuff, guys. Seeing for that continuation, we can turn that 430 back into support. We'll be in the upper echelon of that range, the 412 being that absolute bottom of that range. We see that 430 being a pretty good support level. At 427 if we can hold that, guys, we're really primed to go ahead and retest some of those resistance zones like 440, 453. Ultimately, the top of that zone, it's going to be dependent, I think, on if the overall market's going to pull in the next week or if we're going to see a bit of indecisive back and forth. But really primed for a nice week on the next week of trading. If we did see bear try to step in, given this solid price action, guys, I think we'd have some nice padding at that 412, trying to hold up within that zone. As long as we are in that zone, guys, you got to feel pretty good about the short-term perspective of this thing, as well as the long-term, given that weekly picture. Looks very solid, guys, when a constant, more controlled approach to the upside, kind of chopping around right where we chopped last time, trying to battle for that control, and then boom, complete 180 in price action. So that's all I got for you guys today. I think we look really good in the short term with those short term price targets being around that 440 and that 453. And ultimately, guys, I definitely see a world where we rip back up within a couple weeks of trading to those highs of 474. And then, if December is a solid month, like historically it is in the stock market, go ahead and retest those all-time highs. So that's where I'm at, guys, on the price analysis, and let me know what you guys are thinking in the short term as well as the long term picture. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button and that subscribe button. And as always, guys, trade smart. I'll see you all in the next one.